Hello, everybody. I am Erin. If you are new to any of my channels, I help virtual assistants start thriving businesses. And we have a tight 30 minutes for this week's presentation. The life of a VA. I have a client call in 30 minutes. So we are going to get started with our content immediately and jam through a lot of heavy, dense information. So I hope you're as excited as I am. If you missed last week's Live Wednesday, we talked about how to create a headline for your LinkedIn profile that attracts your ideal clients. So if you missed that, look on my YouTube for last Wednesday's live session. This is a continuation of the presentation. And this week we are talking about content strategy specifically on LinkedIn. Now, content strategy on LinkedIn is probably one of my favorite things to talk about because LinkedIn, like any other social profile, is just I I jumped the shark. It is a social profile. LinkedIn, like anything else, is social. So the more time you spend, the more you engage with other people, the more you share resources and become kind of this known resource in your niche or as a virtual assistant. If you're a general VA, you cannot lose. LinkedIn is this amazing place for content. So I'm going to kickstart off this week, and let me make myself smaller so you can see this more clearly. I want you to ask yourselves, and if you want to type it in the comments, go for it. I will see the comments. I want to ask you, what do you think these creators do that makes their content on LinkedIn so powerful? So that's the question that we're kickstarting off with. If you had to name just a couple things that these LinkedIn creators do, because these 5 people that I'm highlighting, by the way, have at minimum 500,000 followers to millions of followers on LinkedIn. And the way that they created such an engaging profile is through their content. So quick question. Again, if I had the Jeopardy theme song, it would be playing right now. What do you think these people do so well? I'm going to give you just 10 seconds to look at their profiles, to think about it, really think about what it is, how they're making such engaging content. Okay. That was not 10 seconds, but your time is up. So the reason I picked these 5 is not only because they have incredible audiences and incredible engagement on LinkedIn, but it's because they're all doing certain things particularly well. First, they all have unbelievably clear headshots. Okay. Everything is clear. We're seeing their face. We talked about the importance of headshots last week. They all have wonderful banners. Those are the images that you see behind their heads. These banners are incredibly clear. They are streamlined. When you just look at their banner real quick, you already know the type of content that they share. So they are finding visual ways to communicate their niche with extreme clarity. That is such an important thing for all of us to be doing on LinkedIn. And third, they're really utilizing their featured content section pretty well. So whether you're using this right now or not, I highly recommend that you yourselves go into your LinkedIn. There's a little pencil icon that if you click on, it allows you to add different sections, and look for the featured section, because the featured section is what I consider the portfolio of your work on LinkedIn. So if you're a virtual assistant and you either have creative services, you do graphic design, you're doing content editing, you're doing video editing, you can actually post links to your creative pieces on the featured section. That gives clients who are visiting your profile a really clear understanding of the kind of work that you do, what it is that you're doing, how you're doing it, how you're presenting it. The featured section is an amazing way to really showcase some of your talents. And if you're more of a general virtual assistant, like I mostly am myself, I still put featured pieces up there that I think are important and that I think speak to the audience that I'm directly trying to attract. So that can be links to either a blog post that I've written, it could be links to a YouTube video I've done that is speaking directly towards the clients that I want to attract. It can even be a link to a screenshot that I've taken of a travel itinerary. You can get really creative with these things. So just ask yourself, is your featured section and your banner for that matter, is it aligned with the types of clients that you want to attract? So all these people are just nailing it on LinkedIn, and I wanted to give you an overview of what that could look like as you start to create your profile and your content. So let's get into my favorite meat and potatoes of this week's lesson, which is all about content strategy. So like any content that you are sharing, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, who are you trying to reach? You'll see in a few minutes as we delve into, um sorry, I got distracted by someone's question. I am using StreamYard to record this, by the way. So, um, you have to understand who it is you're talking to, because if your content is all over the place, you're not going to be attracting people like you think you are. I'm actually going to skip ahead to just show you what I mean by this. So here is you. I hope you guys love awesome graphics like these. You're on the left. The wall is your LinkedIn content. And the group of the audience members that you see over here, those are your clients. So right now, when you're starting your content strategy on LinkedIn, there's a wall between you and your audience. You're probably posting a million different things, and you think you're doing a great job by posting a million different topics, but it's actually not doing what you think it's doing. Let me explain why. Let's pretend like all of your content is an arrow. You post something about how virtual assistants help CEOs. That's an arrow. Pew! You post something about productivity tips. That's an arrow. Pew! You're posting something about how calendar management can be done with this cool tool you discovered. Pew! Those are your arrows. But if you're shooting lots of different arrows through different topics at the wall, remember, you're shooting, you're posting on LinkedIn, you're trying to break through this wall to get to the audience on the other side. Your arrows are so all over the place that you're making zero dents in the wall. You have reached no one in your intended audience like you think you are, and yet you're posting and posting and posting and posting, and it's going nowhere. Ooh, instead, what we want to do is really have a target that is 1 to 2 to 3 max central ideas that you're posting on LinkedIn. And the reason that we want something to be specifically targeted towards your talent, your niche, your whatever, we will talk more about how you can pick these 1 to 3 topics shortly. But we want you to be specific, because the more you shoot arrows at one target, you are more likely to break through the wall, because you're shooting, you're shooting, you're shooting, you're shooting. Eventually, the arrows chip away and make a hole in the wall. And all of a sudden, your content goes through the wall and it reaches your target audience. So that is not to say that we want to shoot arrows at your target. Literally, we are just trying to break through the wall to reach your intended audience. So that is why, for step one, it is the most crucial thing that we really understand who it is that you're trying to reach. It also is really helpful if you are a virtual assistant who understands the types of people that you want to work with. This is your ideal client. If you can understand a little more about what problems they have, what challenges do they face in their businesses. And you'll do that through actually looking at your ideal clients' LinkedIn profiles. You'll read their pieces that they've posted on LinkedIn. You'll look at their other social media accounts. You'll look at their website. You'll look at different interactions that they're having with people online. Who are they engaging with? These things can help inform, hopefully, and give you a better idea for what are their struggles? What are they talking about? What are they interested in? And if you can really understand what it is that your audience is hungry for, then you can start posting content that is relevant to them. That is the bullseye in the wall, so to speak. So the next step we need to do is, once you figure out who you want to talk to, we need to define a couple different content pillars so that your content that you're posting on LinkedIn is really focused. So I like to keep it minimum, but if you can find 1 to 2 to start, 3 to 4 key themes. So what the heck is a key theme? If you're trying to reach, and I'll just come up with a general example. If you're trying to reach tech CEOs or tech startups, CEOs of startups in San Francisco, I mean, that is as specific as I want you to get. I really want you to understand who you want to work with, where do they live, what do they do, what's their job title. Like, this is your time to shine and dream big. So if you can identify who these people are, we can hopefully identify pillars that relate to them. So if I personally were a VA trying to work with tech startups in San Francisco, I would look for things that are important to them. I would look for challenges. So maybe one of my key themes I talk about on LinkedIn is the challenge of how, as a CEO, you wear so many hats, you have no time to do anything. Maybe you have no time to manage your calendar. You have no time to check your inbox. Your inbox is overflowing because you can't possibly answer everyone's email. Maybe another challenge is that you're constantly presenting to investors and VCs. So maybe one of your pillars is general, maybe one of your pillars you talk about is like how you manage calendars so well. Maybe a second pillar you talk about is how you can create PowerPoints for CEOs so that they don't have to be creating the decks that they present. You can be refreshing and creating, or you can be doing the due diligence about the VCs that they meet. Or maybe you want to have a whole key theme around how to pitch venture capitalists for CEOs. So I'm just throwing out examples here, but there are ways that you can get creative to create content that relates to the audience that you want to get attention on LinkedIn. So, first step, understand your audience. Second step, come up with themes that directly relate to your audience that you can be like, hey, like, I'm a VA and I do amazing PowerPoint presentations. And here's how PowerPoint presentations can affect your ability to pitch and raise money for your company, just as an example. The third step we want to do when you're actually creating your content, now that you kind of have a game plan, is we want to start small. I don't want you to come away with this presentation and think, holy guacamole, I have to create 4,000 new pieces of content every day. No, if you're new to LinkedIn, you can actually start small. What you can do is start by following your ideal clients on LinkedIn. You can like, you can heart, you can thumbs up, you can react to some of the posts that they're posting about. You can engage with them directly by commenting on some of the posts. So if they ever mention something about how hard it is to raise money with VCs, you can be like, I totally get that. You know, I'm a VA. I do a lot of research and due diligence about the VCs, and I get their bios together for other startups like you. That could be really helpful. Give it a try. So you're starting small, you're engaging, you're growing authentic relationships. You can add value through commenting. You can also start small by simply resharing other VAs' posts. So if you see a virtual assistant or somebody out there on LinkedIn who's sharing relevant information to your niche, they're already sharing relevant information to your audience, all you have to do is click reshare. On LinkedIn, you can either reshare content just as is, or you can share content and add a few of your thoughts. So again, keep it simple, start small. If you are resharing somebody else's content on LinkedIn, maybe you add 1 to 2 sentences about why you found this relevant or how it relates to your ideal audience. That is still going to show up on your feed, and it's still going to count as authentic pieces of content, but you're not necessarily creating it. So again, if the idea of content creation really throws you for a loop, don't be afraid to start small. The best thing about LinkedIn and content creation is that the key is really consistency. So if you don't have the time, or you're still kind of thinking about who in your audience you want to reach or how you want to reach them, start by simply resharing other people's posts. I also want you to keep in mind the 3 E's when you're sharing content. It stands for educate, entertain, and engage. So those are the types of content that I strive to share when I'm sharing stuff on LinkedIn. Not every piece of information needs to be educational. Sometimes it can just be entertaining. Lord knows I have shared memes before about virtual assistants, and people usually really love those. It's sometimes is really nice to have a laugh. So try to break up some of your content. It can be funny, it can be engaging, it can be entertaining. And then again, it can also serve for educational purposes where you're teaching them about a new tool that you're using, or maybe you found a new tool that relates to your audience. And so you're sharing content about this tool and how your ideal audience can use it to be more efficient in their own business. There's a lot of different things that you can do, but those are my favorite ways to do it. Step number 4, when we're talking about content, is I really sincerely want you to repurpose your content. I don't want you to be creating new content constantly. That is exhausting, and it's a really easy way to burn out. One of my favorite things to do is to reshare content that I've shared before in new and different ways. So I bring up this rule of 7 for a reason. There is this marketing term called the rule of 7, and the theory is your audience needs to see your message 7 times before they take action. So here's the thing. When we are sharing content online, and I'm included in this, I often fall into the trap of I'm like, well, I made an announcement online for a new program. I announced it one time, and then I'm disappointed when no one takes me up on my offer. And I'm like, wow, I am being so silly. Like, I have to think about it in our own ways as consumers. I watched an ad for Mazda like 100 times before I was like, maybe I should look into Mazda as a car. I've done it with other programs online. I followed somebody online for 2 years before I bought her program. And here I am thinking I'm going to share one post and clients were going to come my way. No, sir. No, ma'am. So the rule of seven is great because if you're afraid of resharing your content and you're like, well, what if people see it twice? Who cares? Not all your clients and your ideal audience is going to be on LinkedIn all the time. B, your audience is not going to see your content all the time. And C, even if they do see your same content repeatedly, it just reinforces the message that you're trying to convey. So, we're going to talk in the next slide about the easiest way to repurpose content. I think you're going to love it and it hopefully will make it a lot easier and less stressful. But I don't want you to be afraid of repurposing because repurposing means that people are more likely to see your message, to remember your name, to remember that you have VA services. So don't feel like you have to constantly create new content over and over and over again. Step 5, as you're going through all of these steps for content, is to make sure that you're engaging. So I like to say, specifically on LinkedIn, don't be a poster and ghoster. I used to post and ghost all the time. And this means I used to post content on my LinkedIn and then just disappear for a week. And I would expect people to be interacting and engaging with my content, but I wouldn't engage back with them. And that really serves no purpose whatsoever. Let's say you did find a content, let's say you did find a content pillar and you have an audience, like a specific client that you have in mind that you want to work with. If you're posting information and you're catching their attention and they're replying to you, but you're not checking your LinkedIn, that's a missed opportunity. That client might reply to something that you've written about and they might be like, "Hey, let's talk about your services." And if you don't answer them in a week, it's a lost cause. They're I guarantee they've already moved on or they're thinking to themselves, "I really need a VA who's a little more action oriented and a little faster at responding to me." So don't be a post and ghoster. What you wanna do is I recommend spending 5 to 10 minutes a day. That's it. 5 minutes in the morning. If you are a coffee drinker, get your cup of coffee, open LinkedIn, peruse the homepage on LinkedIn, and respond to people. If people have engaged with your posts, respond to them. If you're looking for other clients that look interesting to you or people you want to work with online, uh, connect with them, like their content, share the things that they're sharing, but just do it 5 minutes a day because even that much consistent interaction on LinkedIn can make a huge difference in your audience, how people are interacting with you, how your audience is growing, and who is looking at your profile. And of course, this kind of relates to the next one. Consistency, regular posting, regular cadence is pretty key. So, again, I just want to reiterate that LinkedIn is a social media profile, just like TikTok, just like Instagram, just like Facebook. They all function the same way. LinkedIn might be more business oriented, but if you are not actively engaging, if you're not actively updating your profile or engaging with other people, then the profile is really not serving you a purpose at all. And again, LinkedIn is one of the best ways I think that we virtual assistants can connect with clients. It's because there are 900 million people online who are business oriented. So most of those people, I think it's something like 45% of those users, so we're talking about 400 million people, are active daily users. All you need to do is connect with a few, one, two, three of those people out of 400 million to find a client to help sustain your business. Like LinkedIn could not be better for us freelancers, and a lot of how you're going to connect with people is through your consistent actions, through the content that you're sharing, and through your actions on the profile. So talk a lot about actually specifically for step number 4, repurposing content. I'm gonna show you the funnel of how I repurpose my content and how it works and why it works so well. So I always start on LinkedIn with a long form article. What I will do, just relating back to the steps, is I will think about my ideal audience. Who is it that I want to reach? So going back to that earlier example, if I know I want to work with tech startups, CEOs, like that's who I want my clients to be, I will write long form articles that relate to their challenges or their problems. So maybe a long form article of mine would be how to create interesting uh, again, let's just use the same example, how to create interesting PowerPoints or interesting decks that are not stagnant, that are visual, that communicate their startup to venture capitalists. So maybe I'd start with an entirely long article about steps I take as a VA to help my clients create interesting PowerPoints. Now, here's a caveat: if you do not have a CEO tech startup client yet, and you know you want to work with people like this, you can just make it up. You don't have to specifically say, I work with clients who do this. You can say, if I worked with CEOs in tech startups like you, this is how I would design your PowerPoint, and this is why. So you can get creative with it. But the point being, start with a long form article because after you've written, so a long form article, by the way, is the same thing as a blog post, but LinkedIn likes to call them articles. So we've written a long form blog post. Then what I will do after I post the long form article on LinkedIn is I will turn that into a video. All that means is I will look at the content that I've already written and I will just record myself on a phone talking about it. That's it. That is the second piece of content that I then post to LinkedIn. Yes, technically it is the same information, but it is shared in two different types of content. And again, I want to remind you guys about the rule of seven. It takes people 7 times to see your content before they take action. And we're all assuming that all of our ideal clients are going to see us all the time. They're not. So if my ideal client has missed the long form article, then I share it as a video. Then I take that long form content and I make it a little shorter. I add a few more images and I turn it into a newsletter. LinkedIn has this new feature that is somehow different than articles. Actually, I'll tell you how they're different. So, the newsletter feature on LinkedIn looks extremely similar to their article feature. The only difference is when you post an article, it goes onto your LinkedIn feed so that people who are following you can see your content. But when you write a newsletter, it goes to your followers or your audience, people you are connected with, people who are following and engaging with you. It goes to their inbox. That's the huge key difference. Articles that you write don't go to their inbox, newsletters go right into their inbox. And while we don't have access to their email addresses, there is something very cool about our content going straight to people's inboxes. And that is, it gives you a greater chance of visibility. So if you are connecting with your ideal clients, people that you wish to work with, want to work with, look interesting to you, if you're writing newsletters, there's a good chance that your content is going to get delivered straight to their inbox. And that is a really cool way to get your potential clients' attention. If they wake up one day and they're like, oh, look at this interesting newsletter about how they do presentations for startups. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So that is a third component of how I share the same information. Then I take the content that I've written from my long article and I turn it into short posts. So what I will do there is I will pull 1 to 2 to 3 sentences of the most interesting, the most informational, the biggest gem I can possibly find. So if I've written this long article and I'm like, there's really one standout tip in this whole article that I want to like really focus on, I will turn that into a short post where it's either just my thoughts about how interesting this little tidbit is or a quick tip, but whatever it is, I'm just taking short gems out of that long form content. So that's a whole different type of content that I'm sharing. And then last but not least, if I can find relevant images, even if it's memes, pictures, something funny that relates to the things that I'm talking about, I will post those as images too. You can also custom make your own images on Canva, which is free. If you take some of the short posts, maybe again, you have one really interesting, awesome tip from the article, take that tip and put it into an image and then share that tip as a standalone image. So this is the funnel that I use to create content. It not only repurposes content, but it keeps your messages tailored. You are resharing interesting, relevant information. And most importantly, it allows you to create, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 5 different types of posts without burning out. Because trust me when I say, and I have been doing this for 12 years now, if you are still relying on creating new content every day, there's a certain point of time that you're going to get tired, you're going to get burned out, you're going to be sitting at your laptop thinking, what the heck am I supposed to be sharing right now? I am so tired. I've already talked about all this information before. So Content repurposing is actually a really great way to share some important content and hopefully catch the eye of your ideal client. We did talk a little bit about newsletters. Newsletters, I just want to reiterate that this is something that LinkedIn is trying to push out heavily right now. The reason that we typically want to invest some time in some of these new features is because the algorithm will push it out even further. So when you're writing your long form articles, turn it into a newsletter, because not only again will it go to your followers inboxes, but it is a faster, better way for you to grow, all because the algorithm is going to be heavily favoring your profile just for writing the newsletter itself. And this will change this based on your location in the world. So I will say this: everybody's LinkedIn profile comes with analytics. When you're looking in your profile, like you're logged into your own profile, you'll see an analytics tab that will help you inform you about when your specific audience is online. For the most part, the general consensus is that most of the world, and take that with a grain of salt because we are a global world over here with a global workforce, but typically the best times to post are between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Standard. That's like New York City time. Um, Most people, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, tend to be heavily involved and looking on LinkedIn in the morning. And that makes sense to me because LinkedIn is a business social media platform. So it's pretty dead on the weekend. I wouldn't even bother posting on the weekend because people are just not there. The eyeballs aren't there. People are enjoying their lives. They're not at work. It tends to be when people go into the office that they're like, I'm here. I clocked in at 9 a.m. And then they're like, I'm bored. I don't want to work yet. And they go onto LinkedIn. So 9 to 12 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is your sweet spot for posting content. That is when you are going to have the most eyeballs on your content. So keep that in mind when you are starting to post content. This is great. Next week, we are continuing this presentation, and I'm going to talk to you about the best tips for growing connections. Believe it or not, there is a right and a wrong way to connect with people on LinkedIn, particularly clients. So we're going to continue that presentation next Wednesday. If anybody came late to this presentation, make sure you're watching the replay on my YouTube studio because we talked a lot about content strategy. We talked about how to find pillars to break through the wall and actually reach your audience. But this was a quick 30 minutes because Lord knows I've got a client call coming up in about 3 minutes from now. So I appreciate all you guys joining me. I have, that means I have 3 minutes to take your questions about LinkedIn if you have any. But it will be a tight 3 minutes because at 1:30 I am hopping off and talking to my clients. So I want to open up the floor for a few minutes. A, thanks for joining me, everybody. B, type your questions into the comment box and I will see them come up. And C, don't forget to watch the replay, the beginning of this video. And also, last Wednesday, we did a live about your the first part of your LinkedIn profile. It was about your header picture, your profile picture, your banner image, and most importantly, it was about how to create a LinkedIn title that attracts your ideal client. So if you want more information about that, check out last week's live training as well. I think you guys will find it really, really helpful. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions come in. That's great. I really appreciate you guys joining me today. Apologies for the tight 30-minute timeline, but hopefully you guys found some value in the content for this particular presentation. And if you haven't already, connect with me on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm there all the time. I love connecting with you guys in person, and I cannot wait to see the types of content that you are creating. Oh, in my last 2 minutes, I will share this. If you go to my website, erinbooth.com, I do have a new program called the VA Business Blueprint. The blueprint is designed specifically for new or relatively new virtual assistants. It takes you through the ins and outs of how to set up your business foundationally. It sets you up with how to create a killer LinkedIn profile, how to attract, how to talk to, how to pitch your ideal clients. We go through it all. The ideal for this program is it was designed to help you set up your business, set your rates, find your ideal clients, connect with them, pitch them, close the deal, get your contracts in order, and how to do some of the most frequently requested tasks that people ask of VA. So it's all there. It is definitely my most robust program inside and out. And I also, that program comes with live coaching privately for those students, that so that you can specifically ask me questions that relate to your business. So that was my spiel. It's 1:30. I gotta go. Love to all you guys, and I'll see you next Wednesday.